In this video, I am going to clearly prove and demonstrate that the Gentiles in Romans 11 and 11 are not Israelites, but actual Gentiles, as in other nations unrelated to any of the 12 tribes whatsoever. Not Northern Kingdom, not Southern Kingdom, legitimate Gentiles, non-Israelites, nothing to do with any of the 12 tribes at all. Point blank, period. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to demonstrate. Let's get straight into this content. This video is for Hebrew Israelites and those who want to better understand some of the crucial verses that we can go to really walk through real slow so that they can understand exactly what's going on, if they are willing to humble themselves. Let's dive into this right now. Romans 11 and 11, we're going to start at verse number 1. Now, what we're going to realize as we go through these verses is this. I'm going to be very clear. What you're going to see when we go through these verses is that there are three groups of people being mentioned. The remnant according to the election of grace. Those are Israelites that believe. People like Peter, like James, like John. Okay? Then you have Israelites that don't believe. Okay? These are going to be people that are not a part of the remnant according to the election of grace. These are going to be all those other Israelites, like where the scriptures where Paul would say something like, not all they who are of Israel are of Israel, right? Things of that nature. We're going to see that these people are Israelites, yes, according to the flesh, but they're not Israelites according to circumcision of the heart, for lack of better words, or a part of the remnant according to the election of grace. Okay, so the third group of people are going to be people that don't have anything to do with either of those two. Other nations. Okay, and what you're going to see in verse 11 is that salvation has gone to the Gentiles as a result of those Israelites who were blinded. Now, what's very important, because we're going to go through these verses slow, what is very, very, very important, okay, is that you understand that Romans 11 and 11 is dealing with all 12 tribes. It's dealing with the nation of Israel. It's not ambiguous. It's very clear. You take Genesis 1 and 1 literally. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. Okay, you believe that, right? Believe these verses just the same. Okay, let's get into it. Romans 11, starting at verse 1. It says, I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. Okay, I say then, hath God cast away his people? Now, these verses are going to identify who these people are. We can go to so many places and show you that his people in context is the nation of Israel. Okay, but notice how when we continue to read these verses, it's going to clearly demonstrate that when it says cast away his people, okay, it's going to get into the remnant according to the election of grace. I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Paul is acknowledging that he's an Israelite. Okay, now Paul is a separate conversation for a separate video. I'm not going to get into that right now. Let's just deal with this and show that Romans 11 and 11 is dealing with other nations. Okay, now God hath not cast away his people, which he foreknew. What ye not what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying. Now, here we have his people being identified in this verse as Israel. Israel is all 12 tribes. Okay, cool. It says, he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, Lord, they have killed thy prophets and dig down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. This is what Elias is saying, okay? Now, let's continue reading. But what saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. Okay? Or Baal. So now, listen to this verse very carefully. What saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee. What this is teaching is that there is a remnant according to the election of grace, despite what it may look like, Elias. In essence, despite what it may look like, as Paul gets ready to tell you that they have stumbled as it pertains to Israel at large, right? There is still a remnant, the little flock, Peter, James, John, Acts 2:38, all those folks, there's still a remnant. Now, let's continue. Even so, then, at this present time, also there is a remnant according to the election of grace. Okay. So now, remember I told you 3 categories of people. Let's pay close attention to this. Okay. What this verse is letting you know is that at this present time, at the time that he's writing this epistle, he's letting you know, despite what it looks like, he's letting you know that there is still a remnant according to the election of grace. Why is there a remnant? What's the purpose of the remnant? Right? Clearly, not everybody is following the program. Not everybody believes that Jesus is the Messiah. Clearly, they have been scattered. This is why James is writing to the 12 tribes, which is scattered abroad. Okay? Why are they being scattered? Who are they running from? Their own people. Just like Paul was a persecutor of the church. Let's continue. And if by grace, now remember according to the election of grace, and if by grace, then is it no more of works? Otherwise, grace is no more grace. But if it be of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more work. Okay? Not going to get into that. Let's continue in verse number 7. What then? Israel, all 12 tribes, have not obtained that which he seeketh for, but the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So it says, what then? Israel have not obtained that which he seeketh for? No, that's not what this is teaching. It says, but the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Okay, this is dealing with the first 2 categories of people. Israel, according to the election of grace, they have obtained this grace apart from works. And the rest of Israel was blinded. So we're still dealing with Israel. We have identified in these passages that right now today there is an election according to grace. There is a remnant according to the election of grace. Okay? And the rest, not the remnant, the rest were blinded. Cool. Verse number 8. According as it is written, God hath given them the spirit of slumber. Who's them? Them is not the remnant according to the election of grace. Them is the rest of Israel that was blinded. Okay? God hath given those Israelites who are not a part of the remnant according to the election of grace, those Israelites who were blinded, he's given them the spirit of slumber. He's given them eyes that they should not see and ears that they should not hear unto this day. This is why Paul says he could wish he was accursed for his kinsmen according to the flesh, right? Okay. Look at what it says in verse number 9. And David saith, let there. So now we see that David is prophesying not about the remnant according to the election of grace, because they have obtained it. He's prophesying about the rest. Okay. He says, let their table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. Look at what he says here again about the rest that were blinded. Let their eyes be darkened that they may not see, and bow down their back alway. Okay, now what is very important that we understand is that up until this point, only 2 groups of people have been talking about as a result of one group of people. Okay, one group of people being mentioned is Israel. Within the nation of Israel, 2 groups of people within that one nation, those 12 tribes, two groups of people have been identified: the remnant according to the election of grace, and the rest of the Israelites who were blinded. Okay, now look what verse number 11 says. It says, I say then, have they stumbled? Within context, who would be the they that has stumbled? The they that has stumbled would be the rest of Israel that were blinded. Then it says that they should fall. So let's read this with that in mind. I say then, have those Israelites who were blinded, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But watch this. But rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles to provoke them to jealousy. So now, as a result of those Israelites who were blinded, those Israelites who stumbled, and those Israelites who did fall, salvation has come unto the Gentiles to provoke those same Israelites who stumbled and who fell to jealousy. It doesn't get any more clear than that. These passages, starting at verse 1 all the way down to verse number 10, is dealing with the entirety of the nation of Israel. And it is differentiating between the remnant within the entire nation of Israel, but as opposed to those who were blinded, who are also a part of the nation of Israel. And what Romans chapter 11 is letting you know is that, hey, all of Israel has not stumbled because there's a remnant according to the election of grace. So we can't say that salvation is going to the remnant according to the election of grace because they have obtained. We cannot then on the other end say that the rest, all Israel who were blinded, salvation now is going to them to provoke them to jealousy. You can't read that into this passage. This passage clearly says, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid. But rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles for to provoke them to jealousy. Now watch this. Now if the fall of those Israelites who were blinded be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them, the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? For I speak unto you Gentiles, inasmuch as I am the apostle of the Gentiles. I magnify my office. It doesn't get any more clear than that. This is why I love passages like Acts chapter 9 and verse number 15. Look at what the Lord Jesus says here. But the Lord said unto him, go thy way, for he is a chosen vessel unto me to bear my name before the Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. It don't get more plain than that. Romans 11 and 13 says that, for I speak unto you Gentiles, and as much as I'm the apostle of the Gentiles. This verse lets you know, right? It doubles down and lets you know that Christ sent him to Gentiles. He says to bear my name before Gentiles and kings and the children of Israel. It separates children of Israel from Gentiles in this passage. And it does that in multiple places. Nevertheless, let me say this one more time. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid, but rather through their fall, salvation is coming to the Gentiles. Listen, some of you Israelites are under what we would call a strong delusion. I want to encourage you to come out of that strong delusion. I really do. Let's go here. Pull this up real quick. Oh, crap. Let me copy this again. Let me see here. Yeah, we can start here, verse number 10. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. They received not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. Okay? Look what it says. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie. That they should believe a lie. Listen, if you reject these verses as true, it just proves that you have believed a lie. And the reality is that most people don't really want the truth as much as they want to hold on to what they believe is true, or what they want to be true, as opposed to what is actually true. I'm encouraging you, don't be afraid of being ostracized because you just believe what you know how many times I've been wrong about stuff in the Bible? And then when I read something and I'm like, you know what, I can't, nothing I can do about this. I just change. Yeah, you're right. And then I teach against it. I was oneness at one point in time. Worst position you could possibly be in. Nevertheless, this is the mid-axe preacher. I encourage you, read Romans 11 for yourself. Romans 11, 1 through 11 for yourself. Be like the Bereans. Search the scriptures. See if these things are so. Search it daily. Read Romans 11, 1 through 11 for yourself, by yourself, with a King James Bible. Just sit down and read it 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, and you see for yourself with your own integrity and your own heart if these scriptures are saying exactly what I'm saying that they're saying. This is the mid-ass preacher. God bless.